Gremlins, a beloved classic from director Joe Dante, a movie where this happens. This was rated PG. Poltergeist, another beloved classic, this one from director Tobe Hooper, a movie where this happens. This was also rated PG. PG, the rating that stands for parental guidance, but for many parents it meant babysitters. They would park their kids in front of any PG movie thinking it was safe for their consumption. Over the years, the general public became confused over the meanings of film ratings. The mindset was this: G, babies; PG, kids; R, teens and adults; and X, adults only. When really it was this: G, kids; PG, kids with parents or guardians; R, 17 and up; and X, adults only, which covered both porn and award-winning films the ratings board didn't understand. On May 23rd, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom opened with a PG rating. The film had many scenes of violence, including one where a man has his still-beating heart ripped from his chest. A few weeks later, Gremlins opened, which was also rated PG. The film is full of violence and gore, which had many parents upset because they thought this was a kids' movie. Since Steven Spielberg produced both films, he was feeling the heat of the backlash. He took it upon himself to contact Jack Valenti, his friend and the head of the MPAA at the time. He suggested a rating between PG and R. That way there was a middle ground for films not bad enough for an R, but with elements not suitable for a PG audience. As Spielberg put it, it was a way to take a PG movie and add a little hot sauce. The initial idea was promising. Teenagers were the largest group of filmgoers, and this was a way to make movies specifically for their demographic. The rating of PG-13 was quickly implemented, and studios came out swinging with titles that probably would have been given an R under the previous guidelines. On August 10, 1984, Red Dawn is the first PG-13 movie to be released into theaters. It opened in the top spot, and that set off a cascade of PG-13 titles. Dune, The Flamingo Kid, Night of the Comet, Dreamscape, and Johnny Dangerously proved this new rating was off to a promising start. In the years that followed, the rating cemented itself as exactly what it was supposed to be, a midpoint between PG and R. For 20 years, everything was fine. Then something changed. A lot of people will point the finger at the 2004 Janet Jackson Super Bowl incident and the media frenzy that followed. This bled over into all types of entertainment as Puritans cried for a new morality. The ratings board took notice, and movies that previously would have been given a PG-13 were now slapped with an R or worse. Here's a good comparison to see how things were before and after the incident. The original 1997 Anaconda versus its 2004 sequel, The Hunt for the Blood Orchid, both of which are rated PG-13. The original has stabbings, shootings, people being covered in blood, as well as being crushed and eaten by the snake in various and grotesque ways. In the case of Jon Voight, he gets eaten and regurgitated. In the sequel, released a few months after the Super Bowl incident, the kills either happen off screen or occur so quickly you can't tell what's going on. Now with more PG-13 films being released than before, the studios began to see it as the sweet spot of film ratings. Teenagers under 17 were flocking to them, and many adults were taking their kids. For the studios, this was a win-win. Unfortunately, this brought a major downside. Studios were now looking at R-rated films less favorably, since the largest demographic with disposable income couldn't get in to see them. So studios took films that were shot with the intention of being R and edited them to PG-13. They were intentionally neutering their films in the hopes to draw in a larger audience. One of the best examples of this is the 2004 release of Alien vs. Predator. Alien vs. Predator was the joining of two popular series. Every single one of these films was rated R, and yet when combined, the result is PG-13. Even the graphic novel it was based on was for mature audiences. Other franchises suffered from this need to make these movies available to the largest audience possible. The Die Hard series had gone through 3 R-rated features until the 2007 release of Live Free or Die Hard. While it had some wonderful over-the-top action sequences, it lost that visceral, raw feel of the first 3 to favor a more sanitized, mostly blood-free endeavor. Not to mention the complete emasculation of the dialogue. John McClane's a bitter New York cop, and as such, he cursed a lot. It's a part of his character, hence his catchphrase.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
To show how toned down the series became, let's look at the FPM, or fucks per movie. In Die Hard 1, 50 fucks. Die Hard 2, 63 fucks. Die Hard 3, 93 fucks. Die Hard 4, 1 fuck. Sort of.
How about yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker?
Live Free or Die Hard ended up being the highest grossing film of the series, but if you adjust for inflation, it's actually the lowest grossing one. That is until the fifth one was released. Since Die Hard 4 was such a hit, Warner Brothers focused on their Terminator franchise. Despite making over $400 million, the R-rated Terminator 3 wasn't the blockbuster they wanted. When they brought in McG to direct, longtime fans of the series were worried. Previously, McG had only directed PG and PG-13 films, so it seemed like they were headed in that direction. At a convention called WonderCon, McG was in a panel to promote the film. When asked about it, he proudly explained a nude scene with actress Moon Bloodgood and promised the film would be rated R.
And the reason why I wanted Moon to stand up is a big lightning rod. Where are my friends from Warner Brothers? Do you want to see Moon's boobs in the picture? Because we shot them and it's turning out to be something that we're not sure if it's going to go in the movie. And I want to take the temperature of this room. All right. Who does not want to see Moon's boobs in the picture?
You asshole.
Who wants to see Moon's boobs in the picture?
In interviews, he frequently said how the WB executives had given him full creative control and told him to make the movie he wanted to make and not to worry about the rating. In the end, Warner Brothers buckled and trimmed the film to PG-13, removing a nice chunk of the violence and the much ballyhooed Moon Bloodgood nude scene. The ironic thing is that the nude scene in the movie is tastefully done and short. Unlike the nude scene of Tanya Roberts and Sheena, a PG movie. This incessant need to make movies PG-13 has ruined some of them. The 2005 horror film Cursed was almost completely finished until the studio saw it. They weren't happy with the film and went back to alter the script and reshoot over 60% of the film so they could release it PG-13. Needless to say, the end result was a complete mess. The 2006 horror film Stay Alive was approved to be filmed as an R-rated feature. After the film was shot, Disney bought the studio and forced the director to edit the film to PG-13. This majorly screwed up the production as certain scenes pivotal to the film couldn't be finished or reshot. There was an entire 15-minute subplot Disney removed because it was too violent for the new rating. When audiences saw the film, they hated it because it didn't make sense. Not knowing about the chunk of the film that explained what was going on was completely removed. The marketing department also did some very underhanded stuff, like showing images from the R-rated film on the website, as a way to trick the audience into thinking that even though it was PG-13, it was still edgy. Fired Up was a hilarious comedy in the vein of Porky's and American Pie that was trimmed to the safer rating, which removed all the best jokes. In the case of Babylon AD, the studio did everything in their power to sabotage the film, all in the name of PG-13. The movie was so botched, the director, Matthew Kasovitz, instead of promoting the film, went around telling people to not see the movie. In an interview with AMC, he said, "I know what I had. I had something much better in my hands. I just wasn't allowed to work. I should have chosen a studio that had guts. Fox was just trying to make a PG-13 movie." Kind of a far cry from the old days when the original Prom Night was first given a PG, so the studio added more violence to get it to R, since they were afraid no one would see a PG horror film. Studios are always looking for new revenue streams, so now with R-rated films being released PG-13, they had something they could push. The double dip. Kids could see the PG-13 cut in theaters, but now adults can watch the R or unrated version on Blu-ray and DVD. All this did was give studios incentive to butcher additional films, since they could use it as a way to siphon more money out of people. The problem is, it very often backfires, as was the case with the recently released Expendables 3. The first film was a violent throwback to the 80s action films. The sequel was a solid follow-up, and even though the studio fought them to make it PG-13, Sylvester Stallone stood their ground, and the film stayed R. Expendables 2 did well, but as usual, it wasn't the massive blockbuster they wanted, so Expendables 3 was pressured into PG-13. They caved, and what happened? The film had a dismal opening. While 1 and 2 opened in the top spot, 3 opened in 4th place. Why'd it do so poorly? One could argue that by lowering the rating, it wasn't opening it up to a new audience, but rather cutting the core audience out. Most likely the audience they were so eager to appeal to has no idea who more than half of these actors are and would rather just go and watch The Hunger Games. There was a recent survey that showed that PG-13 movies are now more violent than R-rated 80s flicks. They claim that movies like Die Hard, The Terminator, and The Untouchables would most likely get a PG-13 now. This is a monumental pile of shit. While there are more guns in PG-13 movies now, there is a distinct difference between shooting guns and gun violence. There is a massive difference between this and this. This. And this. This.
Oh, get out! Let's go! Let's go!
And this.
Oh, come on! Get out! Let's go! Let's go!
Let's look at some PG and PG-13 films before 2004 and try to tell me that PG-13 films now aren't being treated with kid gloves.
We keep playing like this, we'll be the laughing stock of the league.
Well, what do you expect? All we got on this team is a bunch of Jews, spicks, niggers, pansies, and a booger-eating moron.
Hello.
Hi. Good morning.
Is something wrong?
No.
It's unbelievable. I swear to God, Caroline Mulford had to flunk about 9 grades. Truly makes me ill. She's perfect.
What's going on, my friend?
Here's one for you. Jack Valenti, the former head of the MPAA, had this to say about ratings.
I have Valenti's law, which says if you make a movie that a lot of people want to see, no rating will hurt you. If you make a movie that few people want to see, no rating will help you. Ratings have nothing to do with box office.
Which is complete bullshit. If your film is rated R or the dreaded NC-17, that limits your ability to market the film. Certain TV stations won't run R-rated movie ads during primetime in the fear that children might see them. I understand movie studios are in the business to make money. Unfortunately, that drive all too often ruins the art they're creating. To tell an adult story, sometimes PG-13 just won't do it. You need to be R. Don't believe me? Well, let's look at the industry standard for quality in Hollywood, the Academy Awards. In the past 30 years since the creation of PG-13, there have been 172 films nominated for Best Picture. Of these films, 1 was unrated, 3 were rated G, 20 were PG, 53 were PG-13, and 95 were rated R. Even if you combine G, PG, and PG-13, it's still only 76. For the record, the winners were 1 PG, 10 PG-13, and 20 R. Showing how stupid the rating system can be, the 2010 Best Picture winner, The King's Speech, was an R-rated film. The Weinstein Company wanted to get more people to see the film, so they appealed to the ratings board to have a new, slightly censored version released for a limited time. There's a pivotal scene in the film where the king is working with his speech therapist, and he lets loose a string of obscenities.
You don't stammer when you swear.
No, bugger off.
Is that the best you can do?
Well, bloody bugger to you, you beastly bastard.
Oh, a public school prig could do better than that.
Shit. Shit, 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 shit. Shit, 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 shit.
Yes.
Shit.
Defecation flows trippingly from the tongue.
Because I'm angry.
Do you know the F word?
Fornication.
Oh, Bertie.
Fuck. 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 Fucking fuck. Fuck. Fucking bugger. Bugger, bugger, buggity, 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 fuck. Fuck. Arse.
Yes.
Balls, balls, fucking
You see,
shit,
not a
shit,
hesitation.
Fucking willy. Willy. Shit and fuck and tits.
However, it was redubbed so he only says fuck once, and then the rest are shits, which earned them the PG-13 that they wanted. They substituted one expletive for another so that parents and kids can go and see the family event of the year. The Weinstein said they were doing this as a way to open up the film to young people who are troubled by stuttering. Make no mistake, this was done to try to drum up business. Thankfully, this tactic failed hard, as the newly re-rated version only made $1.2 million during that run. Something as silly as this just goes to show how much we need an overhaul of the American rating system. There needs to be a more contextual way of looking at things. Should a movie about a guy trying to overcome his speech impediment be given an R rating simply based on foul language? Shouldn't they be able to see the difference between this and this? I'm not trying to say there shouldn't be a rating system in place. It is absolutely needed. However, as it stands, it is tremendously flawed. If the movie was intended to be R, let it be. Stop censoring movies under the guise of making them for a bigger audience, because both the movie and the viewers suffer. Imagine a PG-13 Pulp Fiction or a Wolf of Wall Street. They wouldn't work. While certain movies can work as PG-13, there are others that couldn't and shouldn't. Why in the world did Paramount think it was a good idea to make a PG-13 zombie film, especially at a time when The Walking Dead, a basic cable TV show, was more violent? In World War Z, we get zombies smashing their heads into glass with no blood, biting people with no blood, people being shot with no blood, and limbs being removed off screen, so there's no blood. PG-13 used to be this edgy format, which is why it was created. It needs to go back to being its own thing. It's supposed to be pushing the envelope of PG, not pulling R backwards. Hey everyone, I just want to remind you I have a Patreon set up. If you like the show and would like to help keep me going, even $1 a month would make a difference. I would really appreciate it. I've got some cool rewards set up, so check it out. Thanks a lot.